welcome to Molineux Stadium as Leicester look to consolidate their place in the Premier League's top four.
Back onto his right foot, shoots and scores! Harvey Barnes equalises!
The Foxes are back in action for the first time since that pulsating 2-2 draw with Chelsea at King Power Stadium.
Chilwell who scores, and Leicester leads in a massive game!
It's Wolverhampton Wanderers against Leicester City, and you can hear it all right here on Matchday Live.
And Deeney heads in, saved by Kasper Schmeichel. Oh, what an absolute cracker from Harvey Barnes!
Your place for all the big moments. You're listening to Matchday Live on LCFC Radio.
And the team news is in here at Molineux. Starting with Leicester City, they are unchanged from the side that started the 2-2 draw with Chelsea just under 2 weeks ago. Jamie Vardy's 200th Premier League appearance in this one tonight as Harvey Barnes starts to make his 50th Leicester appearance. The team in full: Schmeichel in goal, Ricardo Pereira, Evans, Soyuncu and Chilwell across the back, Chowdhury, Tielemans and Maddison in midfield, Jose Perez and Harvey Barnes either side of Jamie Vardy up front. The Leicester bench tonight consisting of sub-goalkeeper Danny Ward, James Justin, Wes Morgan, Damari Gray, Mark Albrighton, Kelechi Iheanacho and Dennis Pratt. As for Wolverhampton Wanderers, quite significant team news. 2 changes. João Moutinho and Adama Traoré drop out for Wolves to the bench as Leander Dendoncker and Pedro Neto come in from their side that started the 0-0 draw with Manchester United. So they start with Rui Patricio in goal, then their back 5 of Doherty, Bolly, Cody, Saiss and Johnny. Dendoncker comes into midfield to partner Ruben Neves, Pedro Neto and Diogo Jota either side of top scorer Raul Jimenez for Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Thank you very much, James. Yes, welcome to Molineux for Wolverhampton Wanderers against Leicester City in the Premier League on Friday night. I'm Dan Bates. Sat alongside me on Valentine's night is Matt Elliott with a very strange look on his face there as I just suggested that.
Oh, I'm saying, what are you suggesting, Daniel? We're close, but we're not that close. Even there's a seat between us for a reason, mate. Nice to see you, though, all the same.
There's a real excitement, isn't there, ahead of this game, Matt? You get the sense, and everyone that's here in the media room gets the sense that this, on paper, could be a really, really good game of football.
Yeah, you would expect it to be so, wouldn't you? Two good, attractive teams there, you know, like to play good football. Both got an air of positivity, both got exceptionally talented managers as well as players. And all the ingredients are there, you know, for a real good mix, aren't they? They've had the break, players have had the chance to recharge, so that, you know, there's no, not that people are looking for excuses, but there's nobody carrying knocks, you would imagine, and you know, they've had a chance to refresh themselves and their minds as well as their bodies, and they should be ready and prepared for a real strong push for the final third or so of the season that is left, isn't it? 2 big games, especially for Leicester. If they can come through these relatively unharmed, you know, they're going to look exceptionally strong for that Champions League spot, aren't they? And Wolves have the incentive of improving on last year's performance, which was exceptional in itself, but they too have aspirations, even for Champions League at this stage.
Yeah, we'll talk about Wolves in a lot more detail a little bit later on Matchday Live, but just looking at Wolves' tweet, what they've put up for their team news, and there's a lot of fans reacting to the fact that there's no Moutinho in the starting 11, more so than Traoré. Maybe that was the one that we were most surprised at, being no Traoré. I know, yes, he's had that shoulder issue, but he was the one that Leicester maybe needed to look out for. But it's no Moutinho that it seems the Wolves fans are most disappointed about.
Yeah, I suppose he's the man of the moment, isn't he, Traoré? Certainly of late, and he strikes fear into the opposition players at this moment in time, doesn't he? So he won't admit it, but I'm sure Ben Chilwell will be breathing a little sigh of relief because it's one tough proposition. He's an absolute phenomenon, isn't he? You know, in a physical sense, and when he partners that with technical ability, which he's capable of doing, not often enough in the past, you know, you really do have a special proposition that you're up against. So I think Leicester will be quietly happy. The fact he's on the bench obviously has the facility to come on, but Moutinho, not as explosive, not as outlandish in his play, but many would say, and certainly it seems that Wolverhampton supporters agree, that he's at least as equally effective. Because, you know, a class operator, isn't he? And I think he's surprised a lot of people, hasn't he, the way I must admit, when I looked at it at first, I thought, not sure he's got the attributes for Premier League at this stage of his career. But he's proved himself and a whole lot of other people very, very wrong, hasn't he? You know, he's a quality performer.
So let's look at the Leicester team news then, unchanged from that game with Chelsea. Are you surprised? Obviously, we heard from Brendan Rodgers in the week saying there would be no Wilfred Ndidi, certainly this evening. So, again, it's Hamza Chowdhury in that base, if you like, of the midfield.
I'd be surprised if there were any changes. Yeah, I think you know, the performance against Chelsea, the first 25 minutes apart, it was very good. You know, considering the quality of opposition, the pressure of the situation. You know, the emphasis that was on that game. I thought Leicester did very well. Unfortunate not to win the game. And there were good performances throughout. Not too many stand out. On reflection, I can't remember, you know, who was that standout figure, but Hamza did as well as anyone in there, really. It was a bit of a scramble defensively in the early stages, and Leicester were hanging on in there, but they gathered themselves. And I think that was indicative of Hamza's performance as well as an individual. I thought, you know, he struggled a little bit to get himself into the rhythm of the game, but once he did, it was quite impressive. And indeed, it looked like he was being missed early on, but I think at the end of the 90+ minutes, most people were, you know, dismissing that sort of train of thought out of their heads. Hamza did more than well enough and showed again that he's a genuine Premier League player these days.
A win for Leicester City this evening would take them 13 points clear of 5th placed Sheffield United. Potentially, more importantly, you never really know, 15 though clear of Spurs, who are in 6th place, which underlines how good Brendan Rodgers and Leicester City have been this season, Matt. And another thing that does that is that you look at the 2 results against Chelsea, firstly at Stamford Bridge and then the one at King Power Stadium a couple of weeks ago, that Leicester fans and Leicester players were disappointed to only pick up 2 points against Chelsea in a season, which shows you the level of quality this group have.
Yeah, that's right, and it's not. It does, and also it's not just based on, you know, ifs and buts. It's the quality of the actual performance as well. Now, a lot is made of performances, and you know, people say, well, try winning a game. You know, it's only good playing well and losing, but over the course of the season, you know, a decent period of time, it's your performances that get you the results more often than not. It doesn't necessarily mean you're dominating possession, as we saw with Leicester in the championship winning season, but you know, teams must develop the style of play, build into it together, and you know, progress in different manners. And you know, I think both sides have done that. But Leicester here tonight, but Leicester, you look at it, I mean, people can start getting a little bit edgy. It's bound to happen at some stage. I feel it's probably just starting to happen about now. It could, the intensity and the pressure could even increase over the next couple of games. It's going to be a tough old battle tonight. You know, really intriguing encounter. And then you've got Man City next week. Now, if things were to go awry on that, all of a sudden there'll be a few nerves kicking in. Personally, I wouldn't be too concerned even if things did go awry, unless it was calamitous results. But the gap would still be substantial enough. Leicester have got to draw on that belief that they've developed over the last 8-9 months under Brendan Rodgers. You know, remember what they're capable of. They're here not by chance, but you know, by hard work and desire, and they're genuine contenders, you know, for that Champions League spot. And I think there's going to be a little nervous period. If they can come through these games, if they get 4 points out of 6, then I think that's a tremendous return, and that really will set them in amazingly good stead. But they, you know, we mentioned about it the other day, they beat Wolves tonight. Wolves are out of contention for catching Leicester. That's you know, looking at it in a positive sense. The pressure's on Wolves to get the result. If they don't, they're not out of Champions League position contention, because of the news that we're probably going to speak about in a bit. I don't know if it got mentioned earlier, which might be, you know, might affect the situation. But regardless of any breaking news that's coming through regarding Man City's situation, if Leicester beat Wolves tonight, they're not catching Leicester. So that's a nice position to be in, and that applies to Tottenham as well. Okay, not Chelsea. If they'd beaten Chelsea, they weren't out of the woods from them. but Arsenal, etc. All these teams, the pressure's on them to keep churning out results. Leicester can afford a little blip every now and then.
Well, let me read something out to you, Matt, that underlines the improvement that Leicester have made. If they do win this evening, the Foxes, they'll be on 52 points, which will equal their tally from last season at the end of the season.
At the end of the season, there you go, yeah. You know, that tells you everything you really need to know, doesn't it? And I don't know what the comparisons are. It's irrelevant, really, what the comparisons are points-wise this season to the year they won the title. I imagine it's a little bit behind that now. I know at the midpoint, I think it was in and around the same sort of level. But yeah, no, they're there by rights, and they're there for a reason, because they're a squad of players that are very talented, good mixture of youth and experience there. They've got a belief, they've got a style of play that suits the individuals within the squad. There's a buoyancy and a confidence about them. There's an eagerness to improve as well, and they're spearheaded by a very experienced and a very talented manager. It's a good mix.
Well, as we know, it's been just under 14 days since Leicester were last in action, thanks to that winter break, and when they were, it was that 2-2 draw with Chelsea at King Power Stadium.
You should save the best until last, but this weekend the big Premier League game is first up, and it's at the King Power Stadium. Leicester against Chelsea, third versus fourth, and vital points to play for in the race for Champions League football. Big moment here, 30 seconds inside the second half. Mount with the corner whipped in, headed goals and in. Antonio Rudiger has scored. Nightmare start for Leicester City, because inside 45 seconds of the second half, Rudiger has scored. James Maddison, lovely ball onto Tielemans, who sweeps it forward to Harvey Barnes. Harvey Barnes here, one touch into the penalty area, back onto his right foot, shoots and scores! Harvey Barnes equalises, just what Leicester City needed. It is 1-1 at the King Power Stadium, and it's a brilliant, brilliant goal to watch.
Quick football destroys teams, and that was quick football. First from Maddison, then from Tielemans to find Barnes. After that, it's all about Harvey Barnes.
Back to Chilwell, down the line to Harvey Barnes. Barnes into Vardy, lovely football to Chilwell. Chilwell clips a cross up, and it's going to miss everybody, is it? No, Ricardo keeps it in play. Tielemans back into the box, comes there. Chilwell who scores, and Leicester leads in a massive, massive game. In it goes from Mount dangerously. Rudiger's up again. He scored again. Antonio Rudiger. What a header that is. And we're all square again in a relentless match. Leicester 2, Chelsea 2, out of nothing.
That was an old school centre forward's header, that. Bang, straight in the top corner. Back where it's come from. Keeper no chance. But you have to question the picking up in the middle of the Leicester City box, I'm sorry.
Your place for all the big moments. You're listening to Matchday Live on LCFC Radio.
Yes, welcome back to Matchday Live here on LCFC Radio with me, Dan Bates. Matt Elliott sat alongside me. We're just listening back to those Chelsea highlights, and two players that were very involved, particularly in that goal that gave Leicester the lead, were of course Ricardo on that right hand side and Ben Chilwell with the goal himself. How important a role do you think they'll have tonight? I asked you this in the week, didn't I, when we did the City commute, when we were expecting it to be Traore up against Chilwell. Turns out it isn't, but still, how big of an evening is it for those two?
Well, like I said, I think Chilwell in particular will be breathing a little sigh of relief, although he knows what, if he does have a good game, chances are Traore will come into the fray and test Ben out in the latter stages of the game. But yeah, you've got to deal with the matter in hand first and foremost. Like every player in Leicester, really, has its own function within the team, doesn't it? But I suppose the fullbacks, as is the case with a lot of teams these days in modern day football, as they say, is the fullbacks are increasingly influential. The dual purpose role it used to be, and it's said quite regularly, isn't it? It was more of a you know, that you were as a defender first and foremost, and get forward on occasion secondly. But some fullbacks are more adept than others and getting into those advanced areas. But these days it's almost a primary requisite, isn't it, that you get forward, you can overlap, you can get the opposition, and then if you can defend resolutely, then even better. But it's almost a secondary purpose. But you know, get that good balance, and I think with those fullbacks, Ricardo and Chilwell, you do have that balance, because I think Ricardo had his many issues maybe in the early part of his time here at Leicester, just adjusting to the game, actually defining a position for himself. Is it fullback, wing-back, wide, right midfielder, right winger even was contemplated, wasn't it? And he has the ability to play all four of those, but I think the right-back position that he's found himself in suits him best. He can combine those defensive and attacking qualities. He's got a superb engine, wonderful athlete, and good quality on the ball, good decision making. You know, more often than not, he picks the right option. Now, I don't think that can always be said of Ben Chilwell, but there's a reasons why. He's younger, he's developing. People are over-expecting a little bit with Ben, and I find myself doing it to an extent. But then you look at the situation, he's England's regular first choice left back. He ain't doing bad. So many players would like to be as you know, as poor as Ben Chilwell, that's for sure. But he's you know, he's coming to the mix, hasn't he? And he seemed destined for, as soon as he was introduced, he seemed destined to be, you know, a regular Premier League performer. He surprised me a little bit with the speed of how he's developed at international level. Well done to him for that. He's taken the opportunities that have come his way. He's been a little bit off colour, you could say, of late on occasions, but against Chelsea, more like his old self. And that right-footed goal that he got against Chelsea, intended or not, will do him a power of good.
How much of a difference for those two do you think it'll be playing against a back three that Wolves have, and they obviously have those full-backs? We expect it to be Doherty and Johnny this evening. Does it change the way opposing full-backs have to play when you're playing against a back three and two wing-backs that will be right on you all evening?
Yeah, but well, again, you know, every sort of aspect has got two sides to it, hasn't it? Because you know, you can look at it and say, right, okay, I've got to go narrow because they play a front three predominantly, Wolves. I know there's good movement, you know, throughout their whole team, but say if it's Neto, if he's on that side, you know, with that three, if he's going to be working up or trying to link up alongside Jimenez, then it's going to bring Chilwell in. So then it's Harvey Barnes' job, more often than not, to actually track Doherty, who's going to be the right wing back. So Barnes has got to be wary not to get caught in no man's land. So they've got to work in tandem defensively, Barnes and Chilwell, and offensively. And he's picking and choosing when to go, when not to go, what time to go, you know, when to delay runs or etc. And that's all part of their development, their education. And sometimes, you know, if you've got to be told to do it, it's too late. So a teammate or a manager on the side, they can assist you, but you've got to pick it up yourself, and it's got to become second nature. You just replicate and repeat those situations again and again and again. It becomes instinctive, and you know, that's how they end up reading the game and becoming better players, more composed as time ticks by. But yeah, no, it does. They'll weigh it up, then assess that. But then there's got to be the time when, if Neto, for instance, comes in, starts joining up with Jimenez, when does Chilwell pass him on? Because Barnes can't go all the way with Doherty sometimes. He's got other duties to get on with. So it's all about reading the game. And certainly the way that Wolves set up, you know, it's for different reasons, but there's a purpose behind it to test the opposition. You know, some teams set up to negate the opposition, but you feel that Wolves do it. They tinker with it a touch. Sometimes it's a 3-5-2, 3-4-3, probably tonight. But it's to set the opposition a problem. Chelsea did it expertly, didn't they, when they won the league? they had the players, the right personnel, the right balance. Aspilicueta was on one side, Moses was, or stroke Alonso, but Moses on the other side, an attacking wing back with a defensive wing back on the other side. But that was complemented by Gary Cahill on the left as an out-and-out defender, so he could cope with Moses ventured forward. But when they wanted to, they dropped in as a back five, and even Eden Hazard would drop in and make the numbers up on the left of midfield. So Wolves can be flexible within the game, and it's it's going to be a real tactical battle out there from both sides. Both managers, put a lot of emphasis on the tactical aspect of the game. It's just whether the players can actually execute and implement it.
Well, Adama Traore or not, the Leicester fullbacks will certainly have their work cut out this evening, and one of those was speaking ahead of the game, and he was asked if their season ambitions have changed now the club are in the top four.
No, I think there are still some games to finish, still a long way to go until the finish. Anything can happen in these couple of months. So it's important to keep our feet on the ground and keep working, and of course we are better than the objectives we put in the beginning of the season, but we want to arrive at the end of the season. It'd be in our objectives or better, but for now it's the same.
That was of course the voice of Ricardo Pereira, the Leicester right back. He is, as he always is, Matt, in the starting 11 this evening, and he was talking though about the ambitions. It's difficult, and obviously Brendan Rodgers and the players don't want to be drawn too much on ambitions between now and the end of the season with where Leicester might or might not finish. But he says there that yes, they are in a much better position to what they potentially expected at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. I think most people would agree with that. Post or close season, pre-season, people were talking about the possibility of Leicester perhaps applying some pressure to the top six and maybe even breaking into it. I don't think all of those people who were mentioning it were that genuine about it. I think they're hoping as much as anything. I don't think anyone could really expect it to happen, but the way it's developed and the way it's unravelled so far, it is incredible, really. Not so long ago they were sitting pretty in second, above Manchester City, just prior to the halfway point of the season. And you just can't foresee that. We know the miraculous events of 2015-16, but you didn't expect anything anywhere near a repeat of that with the quality of opposition. But just 2 points behind Man City as things are now, exactly. And what an opportunity. And again, I go back to comments earlier in the week. Leicester, how do they deal with this final stage of the season? They're in safe hands with the manager, Brendan Rodgers, I'm sure, and some of the other players who've experienced this sort of situation. But in my mind, look at it positively, and that will carry you that little bit further forward. Aim for as high as possible. Brendan Rodgers speaks about being as best they can, and I think fair play to them. They've done that in their time here, the time this season. But there's the opportunity to go and do even better. Shoot for the stars, head for Manchester City, aim for second spot, and then that will become less of a problem behind you. If you start worrying about the, in inverted commas, the chasing pack, then it can become a problem.
I think that sums it up perfectly, Matt. Just as you were talking, the Leicester players have come out onto the pitch this evening. They'll know full well that a win tonight puts them second place in the Premier League with 12 games to go. Exactly.
What more incentive do you need there? But refreshed physically and mentally, ready to go again. They should be busting a gut to get out there and make sure that they see this thing through, because if it would be a huge blow, and I don't even want to tempt fate by talking about it. It would be a huge blow if they were to let things slip, but I don't see it happening myself. There'll be lots of stressing and fretting along the way, I'm sure, as there was in the Premier League winning campaign, which Leicester won by 10 points. And I don't know, without being too complacent, too cocky, I think Leicester have got more than enough to see this through. Even though tonight's going to be a tough encounter, as you look at the Wolves team coming out as well. They've got some quality players throughout. It's going to be a good match-up tonight. But Leicester have that huge points gap, don't they, advantage, which is going to be crucial.
Yes, just to underline that, a win for Leicester City puts them second in the Premier League this evening. This has all come, of course, after this so-called blip that they went through over the Christmas and January period, and Ricardo was talking about that as he's been addressing recent form.
We know in a season it's difficult. Every team has best moments and then not so good. So we know it's a regularity, how do you say, a championship of regularity. It's important to be always good, always winning, but we know that cannot happen all the time, and I think that's what happened, and the teams, they see us in a different way, maybe that they were seeing us in the beginning of the season, so maybe it's that.
That is an interesting point that Ricardo makes there, isn't it? That at the beginning of the season, teams maybe saw Leicester as they were last season, a team that on their day were capable of anything, but really you feel like you could get the better of them. Whereas now, surely opinions have changed from other teams, other managers, because of the way that Leicester have gone this season.
Yeah, I'll take that up to a point. I think Leicester have always been a threat when they get it right, as is the case with many Premier League teams. But I don't think teams are in awe of Leicester now, and I suppose the point he's making there is sometimes they approach the game slightly differently, perhaps, and teams sit off a little bit and soak up the pressure and try and play on the counter. They're more conservative than perhaps they might have been at the start of the season, and Leicester caught teams by surprise. Teams were going toe-to-toe with them, and Leicester's quality took them through. But I look at recent games that I wouldn't say that was the case. It's more about Leicester it wasn't the case at Burnley, Southampton, when they lost those games. I think it was just Leicester being a little bit off colour, not at the top of their game. They just need to find that edge again, because in not so much the Southampton game, but definitely Burnley, with Aston Villa in the two legs, etc. They were the better footballing team. They just didn't have that edge in the game, or that a bit of clinicality. Is that a word or not? I always use that, but it never gets verified. But I'm using it anyway. Within the game.
Clinicalness.
Yeah,
is that a word as well?
That sounds even worse, doesn't it? But it might be. But for me, they just sort of lost their way a little bit, lost their focus. It was almost like there was an overemphasis on the structural side of it. But sometimes you've got to play with a bit of an edge, a bit of, not nastiness, but I don't know, just a bit of rawness about your play as well as the technical side. And mix the two up, and then you've got a great blend. And I think Leicester showed that earlier on in the season. It just became a little bit semi-predictable at times, and I think they opened up and showed more roughness about their play, more intensity about their play against Chelsea. Hopefully we'll see a repeat of that tonight.
Before we get a recap of tonight's team news, Matt, what's a good result for Leicester tonight, do you think?
Yeah, I look at it, a draw's not a bad result, put it that way. I don't think you're not going to be celebrating and popping champagne if you get a draw here tonight, but at the same time it would be acceptable. Performances obviously have a bearing on how people feel about the game, but even if they were to just to hang on and grind out a draw, I expect them to hopefully achieve better than that. But if that was the case, they were under pressure and they grind out a draw, then okay, it keeps Wolves at bay. It gives others an opportunity to close any sort of gap, of course, but this individual opponent is kept in its place, isn't it? And but I think Leicester's aspirations are higher than that, aren't they? They've got the ability to come here, not outplay Wolves necessarily, but go up against them and back themselves to win. And if they could get the 3 points, would be huge, wouldn't it? Because, as is always the case, other teams are going to drop off a little bit.
The press box here at Wolves is absolutely fantastic. It's got a brilliant view of the pitch, around about 20 or 30 yards in front of us. Connor Cody and Matt Doherty are pinging balls 25 yards away from each other, and each one pretty much landing bang on target. They're both in the Wolves starting 11 tonight, so let's get a reminder of both teams with our commentator, James Fielden.
Yeah, let's start with Leicester City, unchanged from the time that started against Chelsea. So Schmeichel in goal, Ricardo Pereira, Evans, Soyuncu and Chilwell across the back. The three in midfield, Chowdhury, Maddison and Tielemans. Jose Perez down the right, Harvey Barnes off the left, and Jamie Vardy through the middle. Wolves are making two changes. The two going out, João Moutinho and Adama Traoré, as Leandro Dendoncker and Pedro Neto come in. Now, we're not quite sure on the formation, considering what we told you earlier, some suggestion they might go two up top with one behind, which is why Neto has come into the side. But if they go like they normally would, they'd have Patricio in goal, Doherty, Bolly, Cody, Saiss and Johnny across the back, Neves and Dendoncker their midfield too, Neto and Diogo Jota, who scored that hat-trick in the incredible 4-3 game here against Leicester last season, and Raul Jimenez up front for Wolves.
Thank you very much, James. Still to come here on Matchday Live, we'll hear from former Wolves fullback Andy Thompson, as well as both managers Nuno and Brendan Rodgers.
LCFC Radio.
Manchester City have been banned from all UEFA competitions for the next 2 seasons and fined £25 million. Joe Rawson reports.
The club have been found guilty of committing serious breaches of UEFA financial fair play regulations by overstating its sponsorship revenue. It means they won't be allowed to play in the Champions League or Europa League over the next 2 seasons. The Premier League champions say they are disappointed but not surprised by the announcement and will appeal against the punishments at the Court of Arbitration for Sport.
More than 200 people who attended a conference in London have been identified as having a higher risk of catching the coronavirus. Advice has been issued to anyone who was at the Bus Summit last week after someone tested positive. 2 MPs who were there have cancelled public engagements for a few days. There are predictions more stormy weather, potentially worse than last weekend, could cause hundreds of homes to be flooded. Large parts of the UK face heavy rain and strong winds from tomorrow. Harvey Weinstein's been accused of treating aspiring actresses as complete disposables by the prosecution at his rape trial in New York. But during closing arguments, the former Hollywood producer's lawyer accused prosecutors of creating an alternative universe. He denies all the charges. Back to sport, Wolves and Leicester return to action after the Premier League winter break in around an hour. Leicester boss Brendan Rodgers says they feel reinvigorated from the time off.
It was definitely something that will benefit them. I think just to break the cycle from football was important.
Wolves boss Nuno Espirito Santo hopes home advantage will make the difference tonight.
Molineux is always phenomenal. Molineux has been fantastic since the championship. It's been amazing to support our fans give.
And Billie Eilish's song for the new James Bond theme has been viewed more than 8 million times on YouTube within the first 24 hours. She'll perform No Time to Die live for the first time at the Brit Awards next week. She's the youngest artist to ever record a 007 title track. That's the latest. I'm Anna Bates.
Step of Leicester City's Premier League campaign. You're listening to LCFC Radio.
Welcome back to Matchday Live here on LCFC Radio at Molineux with me, Dan Bates. Matt Elliott is sat alongside me. We've got plenty more to come here on the show. We've got, of course, full uninterrupted commentary from 8 o'clock. Matt Elliott will give us his thoughts in the build-up to the game. We'll also hear from Nuno and Brendan Rodgers. But before all of that, we'll hear from former Wolves fullback Andy Thompson, who underlines the importance Adama Traoré has in this Wolves side.
He put the fear into you, I think, with the pace that he's got. But at the end of the day, so he's come here, he's played as a team player now, so that's the biggest thing that I can say to him. I know everybody talks about his pace and what he offers the team going forward, and we all know that, but he's started to become a team player as well. He's starting to work when we haven't got the ball, and that's been the biggest improvement from him as well as that final ball is improved. With Jimenez, with the amount of goals that he's scored since he's been here, Adama, and then say you've either got Jota or Neto so on the other side. So we have got quite a potent front three. So it should be an interesting game, especially I know the way that you play, exciting going forward with Maddison and Vardy. So yeah, it should be interesting. But so yeah, the front three will scare most of the teams in the Premiership this year. think it'll be massive. So, like, I think it'll be a great atmosphere. I'm sure that Leicester will bring a lot of players as well, fans, sorry. But we're all looking forward to it. We all think that it's going to be an exciting game with the style of play that they play, the football, and hopefully we'll get goals. And saying that now, we'll probably be 0-0.
The only place you can listen to every Leicester City match online. This is LCFC Radio.
Well, let's hope he isn't right. Let's hope it isn't a 0-0 here this evening on this Friday evening in the Premier League at Wolverhampton Wanderers. That was the voice of Andy Thompson, the former Wolves fullback. It's great, isn't it, Matt? You do all this content and ask a big question about Adama Traore before the game. Team news comes in, he's not even starting.
You should know better. Pick up on that experience, Daniel. Cover all bases. Keep your options open. But you're right, exactly. I mean, he's carrying that shoulder injury, whether that's part of the manager's thinking, but like I say, Ben Chilwell won't admit it publicly, but he'll be breathing quite a large sigh of relief, I think, that Traore is not in the starting lineup, that's for sure.
Is that something that you look at when you're a player? Clearly, matchups like that happen across the pitch, don't they? So right backs look out for left wingers. You, as a former central defender, looked out for a striker. So if you sacked yourself up, if you were playing Arsenal, for example, I didn't mean to drop this one in, but if you knew you were playing Dennis Bergkamp, you were thinking in the build-up to the game, right, I've got to mark Dennis Bergkamp, and then maybe if you were to find out just before the game he wasn't playing, do you do that? Do you actually sigh a sigh of relief?
Only privately. You're not going to admit publicly, are you? Oh God, I didn't fancy playing against him in the first place. But well, in Arsenal's case, it wasn't just one individual; it was the whole team you were worried about, to be honest. So they're not all going to fall ill, are they? Unfortunately, but no, I think there's just certain players that it becomes a sort of personal matchup, because their style of play as well. Like Traore is quite individualistic, isn't he? I almost call him basic. That sounds too simplistic. But he gets the ball, he just wants to turn and he wants to run at you. He's got technical ability as well. Yeah, he's developed himself, obviously, but he's not just all about pace and power. But those are his two main attributes, and utilise them to full effect. He'd be daft not to. But so he tests you out in that sense, and if you don't get your body positioning right and your timing right, just slightly out of sync, you're in trouble, because he is ridiculously pacey and powerful. It's freakish in a football sense. He's like a running back crossed with Usain Bolt. He's some proposition, isn't he? But when he can harness that with good delivery into the box or shots on goal or creating opportunities for teammates, then you've got some player. So then it's how do you stop him? But in truth, not many players can stop him on his own. You need assistance, and that's where the team collective comes into it. But in your question, do our players relieve? I think on the odd occasion, yeah, of course you are. Let's go back to, I don't know, for one example, Alan Shearer. You're playing against Alan Shearer. Tweaks his hamstring in the warm-up. Thank you very much. Okay, but then you don't gloat about it, and you don't take the incoming player lightly, because in all likelihood he's going to be on a mission anyway and try and make his point. And you take your foot off the gas, and you pay the price more often than not, don't you? But yeah, of course they do. You look at little oppositions, and it's a relief when the better players are not playing. Equally in midfield, Moutinho. But these days, Wolves and Leicester have both got very deep, talented squads. So one player out, another one in. There's very rarely is there a massive difference between one player and another. But Traore is an exception. I think against him, he is capable of roasting you. He's capable of looking ridiculously amateurish as well on occasion. But he's got it together lately, and I think it's a bonus he's not involved.
And as much as there might be an inward sigh of relief from Ben Chilwell, he will look at the bench and see that he is on the bench, and most likely will be used from the substitutes bench. So to face Adama Traore when you're fully fit and you start the game is one thing, but to do it when you've played 60, 70 minutes.
Well, that's the way. You don't want to play too well if you're Ben Chilwell. Just do okay, nice and steady, and nick a late winner. That's it. And then Traore, you might not have to deal with him. But no, we're overcooking it a bit. But Ben's a very competent performer in his own right. But the form that Traore is in, everybody's wary of him. That's for sure.
Right, let's get the view of Adama Traore's manager then. Nuno, he spoke about his team's recent results, which has seen them slip to 9th.
No, we don't judge by that. We had good performance, bad performance, but the ability to compete and to always stay in the game and doing well is there. So this is what we are always looking to improve, knowing that's ups and downs in performance, ups and downs in the form of the players, and it's up to us to improve them, to get them better. So be able to team always be compact and ready to compete.
You say that Wolves have slipped to 9th with those recent results, Matt, but they're only 4 points off 5th place and 6 points off 4th place. So as much as they've had a mini blip in the same way some people would say that about Leicester, they're still right up there, and a couple of wins for them puts them again in the hunt, which is I guess why you're saying you're underlining how big of a chance this is for Leicester to really shut the door on Wolves' Champions League hopes.
Yeah, exactly. What was it? 14 points. So the gap is at the moment between Leicester and Wolves. That seems insurmountable, doesn't it? But and probably will prove to be. But if Leicester get the result tonight, it definitely is. That's one team out of the equation. So that's why I'm saying the pressure's on Wolves, really. If they want to. Listen, it's only to a degree because they've done exceptionally well. They're not expected to be competing in the Europa League, never mind the Champions League, but they are this year in the former, and they're looking to progress to that next level. The fact that they are still in the Europa League and competing at a decent level and in the top half and beyond of the Premier League is a wonderful achievement, really, because Leicester last year there was talk of trying to achieve Europa League position and it just dwindled away at the end. Personally, I wasn't too concerned about that. In fact, I was quite thankful because I don't think they would have been ready for that challenge. And for Wolves, it's happened ahead of schedule, but they've dealt with it superbly. Probably assisted by the fact that a lot of their players are continental and have experienced European football at one level or another earlier in their careers, but they've had to combine it, playing regularly, or at least semi-regularly, a couple of games a week, predominantly the same squad, if not the same starting 11, and they've coped with it admirably, haven't they? And full marks to the players and the manager and all the staff there, the way they're developing this club, and the Wolves supporters must be absolutely loving it. You hear them speak about it, and it's questioned about the moralistic aspect of it, with how the club is run and the recruitment side of things, but not too many questions asked these days, are there? People are just marvelling at the spectacle they see in front of them.
I think one thing as well that you can look at it is 1 win in 6 for Wolves in the Premier League, 1 win in 8 in all competitions as well. But they're still obviously a quality side, and a couple of those defeats, one of them in particular was against Liverpool, and they pushed them all the way here at Molineux on that evening. Adama Traore again was absolutely fantastic, so they'll have felt hard done by to lose that game. And the one win they did get, they were 2-0 down away at Southampton, but showed the character and resolve to come back and win the game.
Yeah, good players, aren't they? You can see that even in the warm-up, they don't take too much from that, but you look at them, there's a little swagger about them. Not in an arrogant sense, but they look confident, they look stylish, and they know what they're doing. It's all, even their warm-up has been structured, minute detail from start to, well, it's not the finish just yet, but it's not far off. And there they are, they're just doing phases of play, reenacting phases that they're hoping to achieve once game time starts. Leicester similarly, they're obviously very detailed in their warm-up, but these players are. They'll take. They sort of have that calmness about them. That emanates from the manager, I suppose, because whatever happens, he doesn't get too carried away, does he? He believes in his style of play. He believes in his players' ability to go and enact what he implements for them on the training ground, and they've done it pretty successfully. There'll be little dips and troughs and peaks along the way, but the consistency over a period of time is the target, and they've certainly achieved that.
The Leicester players themselves have just headed down the tunnel for their final words from manager Brendan Rodgers. Just in front of us, the Wolves players are finishing off their warm-ups. Willy Bolly was just in front of us there doing some heading drills. He looks like a fierce opponent if you're a striker coming up against him.
He's a big old boy, isn't he? Yeah. He's a brute of a player, isn't he? I mean, he can play a little bit as well, and there were questions asked. You wonder whether he had the concentration levels to excel in the Premier League. You know, when he came up from the Championship, I think he was one of the players of the year, wasn't he? He was an outstanding figure for them. He thought against the extra sharpness of mind as well as body of the Premier League player, actually might get caught out, but he's tailored himself well into it, hasn't he? And he's physically, yeah, he's a brute of a centre half, isn't he? And he's got all the physical attributes, and he's proving a genuine Premiership performer, isn't he? As are the majority of his teammates.
From a Jamie Vardy point of view, when you look at a back three, because you obviously played in back threes, you played in normal centre-half pairings as well. When you came up against a striker that was a lone striker, like we're expecting from Jamie Vardy, he'll then have the support from Barnes and Perez either side of him, but will he look to drift on to one in particular, Willie, or how does it work as a striker and then as a defender defending against that? Because presumably there'll be two free centre-halves at all times.
Yeah, like everything, that's got its pros and its cons. I mean, more often than not, when we adopted the back three system, we were up against two strikers. It was quite rare in our days to have just a lone striker, if it happened at all. Sometimes you'd end up with three centre forwards, but they weren't so much like they are now. We had one striker and two wide forwards. It was sort of three centre forwards shoved up front, and they often used to, I didn't mind playing against that personally, because I thought they used to get in each other's way. They didn't quite know how to play with each other more often than not, unlike they do now. You know, it's all engineered and practiced and well rehearsed, and movement is exceptional these days, and Leicester are a very good example of that. But yeah, for Jamie, I mean, you would look at it, but obviously it's the flow of the game which dictates. But there would be a conscious ploy if, for instance, the outside left centre half is struggling a bit for pace. Boys, it makes sense to target him. You know, let's get it out to Ricardo. Iose, maybe stay wide, come deep, and attract the wing back, and leave that space for Jamie to make runs into. So little tactics like that can be employed. Who is it that is? Cody and Sace, isn't it? Sace, I don't think he's a greyhound, but he's more than capable. He's filled in well, hasn't he, in his time here at Molineux. And as we say with Bowley, again, Vardy will probably be a nuisance for him. He'll probably wonder where he is. He's scurrying around, below eye level, and mobility might be an issue for him up against Jamie Vardy. Cody's not the quickest in the world. If you can isolate him, you've got a chance. Very good technical player. So there are deficiencies in that Wolves defence. They're not watertight by any stretch of the imagination. So there's the incentive for Jamie to keep making his runs. I think what Leicester might look to do a little bit more is Jamie doesn't feature in the games that much of late, I think. The people saying, goal drought, I'm not worried about that. Give him the chances, he'll score, but just try and involve him in the game a little bit more. It can't just be like 4 or 5 isolated instances. Just like to get general play, get more touches in that central area. But it's a good matchup, good tactical battle, and looking forward to it as the tension builds.
The Wolves players have just gone down the tunnel themselves to a rapturous applause from the Wolves fans already inside Molineux here, but we're more interested in what's going on in the away dressing room this evening, and the voice of Brendan Rodgers, of course. He was speaking ahead of the game and talking about the benefits of the winter break.
Yeah, there's no doubt it was definitely something that will benefit them. I think just to break the cycle from football was important, and not just as much the physical but the mental pressures around it as well. So it allows them to go away, not think about football, but come back now, and now we're fresh and ready for this final third of the season. So but no, they've all come back, enjoyed their time away. Some didn't go away, but they're all ready and trained really well this week.
What did you make of the winter break? And I don't mean you personally going and enjoying yourself and having a weekend off. I mean from a player's point of view, what do you think it's done for the Leicester group?
I think it's come at the right time. Ideal for Leicester City, yeah. You know, whether they went away, I don't know, 3s and 4s, some of the lads get on quite closely, I think, some of the younger boys. I believe, you know, mixing together socially. Don't see anything wrong with that, whether you go individually, with your family, collectively as a squad of players. Whichever way they were instructed to do it, I think it was hugely beneficial, yeah, for Leicester in particular. I'm not even talking in terms of in the summer competitions and European Championships, etc. We're yet to see whether it proves any benefit in those instances. But you know, just in terms of Leicester City, I think with the young players they've got in the squad who are not used to competing at this level of intensity that they're having to, going deep into cup competitions at the top end of the Premier League, and it brings its pressures. And for them, it's new. It's exciting, but it can be draining as well. And it can be testing. I think just to switch off for a little bit, recharge the mental batteries as much as anything else, won't do them any harm whatsoever.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. Some people are criticising the decisions that some Leicester players are taking on their break, but it's about the individuals, isn't it? Those that have families to go spend time with their families if they want, those that don't go away together, enjoy themselves wherever it is they might be and just recharge. You guys, before big cup finals, went away and enjoyed yourselves. It's just about taking yourselves away, I guess, from the pressure cooker of the Premier League.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You know, you deserve to have that time to switch off, relax and recharge. You never know, you might even go away and enjoy yourself for a little while. Perish the thought. But it's exactly this. The young boys, they're doing well in their profession. They apply themselves exceptionally well, or they wouldn't be where they are. Let them loose for a little while. Exactly. You know, enjoy the fruits of their labour to an extent. Much of any negative reports are largely exaggerated, aren't they? Anyway, and magnified. And it's you know. In this winter break, there hasn't been any. There's been lots of little ripples of rumours and negative comments, not just Leicester City players, but in general. It's just an opportunity to have a little swipe, isn't it? Nothing untoward has occurred, and it's worked out well for them. And listen, you know, they were given the option to choose how they want to go about things, how they want to spend their spare time. Some players maybe didn't even go away at all. I don't know, but you know, it was valuable time, valuable free time that I think will serve Leicester in particular well as the end of the season develops.
You could also argue to an extent then it might have served Wolves well as well, because they've got this big run of fixtures coming and they had this mini blip as well, one winning 6 in the Premier League. It might have come at a good time for them as well.
Yeah, you know, there's some fruits in the pudding, we'll see. Spectacular pyrotechnics going on here, by the way. More like a massive rave stroke nightclub, isn't it, than a football game? But but some teams I think it will benefit more than others. Leicester and Wolves being two that will reap the rewards. Yeah, definitely, because like you say, heavy schedule that Wolves have had over a long period of time. Nice just to have a little breather. They might go home and see family. A lot of the boys are from foreign soil. But in Leicester's case, you know, for the reasons aforementioned, you know, I can only see it being a good thing for them. And let's see tonight how good a break, how good that rest has done them, because the atmosphere is certainly being set for them to perform, that's for sure.
Yeah, as Matt Elliott just referenced there, the pyrotechnics are going, the light show is going here inside Molineux. It looks absolutely fantastic. I wonder if it will translate to the players, of course, in the dressing room. Just looking across as well, Matt, you can see the bottom tier. They've got the whole stand, those Leicester fans. Very quickly before we hand over,
what about the supporters?
How big a role do they have tonight?
Yeah, is that all the way across along there? Yeah. I was just trying to look. I didn't know if it was double tiered or whatever, but that's unusual, isn't it, to have that whole band there? It must be a good, I don't know, 3,000 or 4,000, isn't there? Got to be 3,000 minimum, yeah. They're making their voices heard at the moment, but atmosphere's being cranked up, yeah. Great to see. As usual, no surprise, Leicester turning out in the droves.
Kasper Schmeichel and Connor Cody ready to lead their teams out here for this Friday evening Premier League affair between Wolves and Leicester City. A reminder, if you're listening in on social media, the feed will stop just before kickoff. All you need to do is head to lcfc.com/radio to hear all 90 minutes with our commentators Matt Elliott and James Fielden.
Madison, oh, that is absolutely brilliant, and it's a beauty. Jamie Vardy again for Leicester City. He's up and running. What a fantastic goal!
Touch, back of the net.
Come on. There's a somersault to celebrate with the travelling Blue Army.
All the games, all the goals, and all the big moments. You're listening to LCFC Radio.
Hello, good evening everyone, welcome along to Molineux. The Foxes' winter break is officially over, and this year we're spending Valentine's Day under the lights, but brighter than your average candles, and also in the Black Country as Wolves host Leicester City in an all-Midlands affair. It's been a strange couple of weeks without any football, I think we can all agree, but we are back and it promises to be an entertaining contest between two technically gifted teams who have been big success stories this season. It was a frustrating 0-0 stalemate when the two met on the opening day of the season back in August, and after taking a point against Chelsea 2 weeks ago, Brendan Rodgers will be looking to make it 2 wins in 3 against Nuno Espirito Santo's side. Win tonight and Leicester City will take second place in the table again, ahead of Manchester City's rearranged game against West Ham United on Wednesday evening. Wolves have had to juggle commitments both home and abroad this season with their Europa League exertions, and come into tonight's game in 9th place with us 4 points off Sheffield United in 5th and a further 2 off Chelsea in the final Champions League spot in 4th. The two teams making their way out onto the pitch here to the sound of Led Zeppelin that is reverberating around this famous old stadium. Both sides in their traditional home colours, led out by tonight's referee Mike Dean. Who else would you want on Valentine's night, of course? The man who shares love all over the Premier League. And this should be a good game. In terms of the two teams, let's start with Wolves, the hosts, who've made 2 changes to the side that drew with Manchester United in their last league game, 0-0 a fortnight back. João Moutinho and Adama Traoré drop out of the side. Leandro Dendoncker and Pedro Neto come into the team. So they line up with Rui Patricio in goal, Doherty at right wing back, Bolly, Cody, Saiss and Johnny at left wing back, Neves and Dendoncker in the middle of midfield, Pedro Neto and Diogo Jota either side of Raul Jimenez. Leicester are unchanged. Kasper Schmeichel starts in goal, Ricardo Pereira at right back, Johnny Evans and Shakla Suunchu in the middle of defence with Ben Chilwell at left back, Hamza Chowdhury anchoring midfield with Tielemans and Maddison either side, Jose Perez off the right, Harvey Barnes off the left again looking to continue his good scoring run, Jamie Vardy starting up front, a man in desperate need of a goal, the Premier League's top scorer on 17 but has now not scored for quite some time. Hi-ho Silver Lining, the club anthem here at Wolves. Both sides just going through a few final preparations here. Excited to say that alongside me for this one is former Foxes captain and defender Matt Elliott. Matt, do you have any thoughts and memories of coming to this ground as a player and what it was like?
I do, yeah, mixed emotions, mixed fortunes coming to this ground. In my younger days at Torquay, we got through to the Sherpa Band semi-final. Well, through to the final actually, we got man of the match performance. Unfortunately didn't go quite so well in later years, when it's been spoken about in the build-up. 3-0 up at half-time, my first game back after injury. We proceeded to lose 4-3. I didn't play again for another 3 months, it's safe to say. But yeah, no, it's a real football atmosphere, isn't it? What a theme tune this is, by the way. It's got the away supporters.
We were in the old discotheques enjoying this one back in the day.
A few memories, didn't it? But I mean, it's great. Look, everyone in full voice. And even the Leicester supporters are joining in, I think, as well. Going with the flow. Great atmosphere. The pyrotechnics, which I'm not a massive fan of, have been spectacular. You know, feel the heat up here off them in the media department. But yeah, listen, the scene is set. Hopefully the match will follow the build-up.
Wolves in their pre-match huddle here on the electronic advertising boards around the stadium. The message says, stay strong Wuhan. Of course, Wolves with Chinese ownership at the moment. Wuhan, the start of the horrible coronavirus, which so many people are talking about at the moment. Wolves sending their message to the Far East ahead of kick-off. We're just about ready. A win tonight would equal Leicester's points tally for the whole of last season, but they have to be wary of a Wolves side that have scored at home in every league game this season, with the Foxes keeping just one clean sheet in their last 10 league matches. Jamie Vardy standing over the ball. He will get this game underway. Leicester ready to get going again here. Hopefully the break has done everyone good. Hopefully it's a very energetic game, as I was saying when they met here last season. A 4-3 win for Wolves, but what a game it was. And we're underway. Leicester in possession in their home kit. Blue shirts, white shorts, blue socks, attacking from left to right in front of us here. They're attacking the Sir Jack Hayward stand in this first half. And Wolves in their old gold shirts with the black shorts and black socks, attacking the north end of the ground here, the north bank, the Stan Cullis stand. Pedro Neto trying to pick up the ball on the right-hand side here for Wolves. It goes out off a Leicester City player. As the guys were talking about before kick-off, the Leicester fans all in the lower tier of the Steve Bull stand opposite us here, one of the more unique away ends in the Premier League. Ricardo Pereira in possession here for Leicester in the centre of the park. He's played it forward to Tielemans, who tries to help it forward. Then Donker gets a knock on it. Wolves able to clear it away towards Diogo Jota, who can't get a foot on the ball, and his fellow countryman Ricardo Pereira pokes it away. It's over with Chilwell on the left-hand side now. Madison carrying it forward for Leicester. 20 yards inside the Wolves half, goes back to the halfway line to Suinchu. Suinchu square to Johnny Evans. Out to the right-hand side for Ricardo Pereira. He will come forward here unopposed and puts an early ball into the box, headed away by Connor Cody. Picks up though by Madison, central position, midway inside the Wolves half. Chilwell on the left-hand side. Leicester with some good early possession here on the edge of the Wolves penalty area. The ball's crossed in, it's deflected. Comes through to Iose Perez on the right-hand side. He goes back, Chowdhury. Leicester hang on to the ball. Wolves trying to win it back now, but back out to the right-hand side. Advantage played by referee Mike Dean. Diogo Jota wins the ball back now for Wolves and will bring it away for Nuno's side down the left-hand side. And it goes out off Tielemans. It's a Wolves throw, which will be taken by Johnny Castro, the Spanish international at left wing-back. Johnny waiting for options to come too. It's Jimenez who picks it up, and a crossfield ball first time towards Doherty on the right-hand side. Back on to Dendoncker. Matt Doherty pops it forward down the right side, but it went off him last. It's a throw-in to Leicester City, which will be taken by Ben Chilwell. Leicester with some good early period of possession here, Matt, and they spent most of the opening couple of minutes inside the Wolves half.
That's right. Surprisingly sedate start from Wolves there. It's just looking right directly from the kickoff, what their approach would be, and they were quite happy and willing for Leicester to have possession as they break here, switching it from left back into a wide right position. And you say Leicester's so comfortable in possession and being afforded so much time and space. Here we see Wolves dropping off a back five, so it's not a 3-4-3, it's a back five and a three, well, two in midfield really. But then the wide forward players, Jota and Neto, are dropping in and assisting in midfield. So it's almost a 5-4-1, and I don't know whether Leicester were expecting this. Normally you think a home game that the emphasis is, or the onus is on the home team to go and take it to the opposition in the early stages at least. But